Welcome. We've already got tech problems. Clearly, the doom is upon us. I thought it was just going to be me with my lingering cold and my frustration with the rom-coms and well, it's mainly my lingering cold and I'm not feeling terrifically good. And now, down there in the down under, Kilts is having internet problems again. You all remember what we had to do 2-3 episodes ago when her internet was so bad we've had to caption it. I think what we're going to do right now is I'm going to talk to you all who are there in the chat. Hi Mel, please, yes, send St. Michael to intercede for us. And maybe we can, I don't know, we can test out the super chat. You guys can give me pennies and see whether or not the super chat and unauthorized works. But we've got, oh, okay. Kilt says she should be back in. I don't see her yet in my Skype. I'm not gonna turn on the shared video yet until I can see her again. Let me see. Nope, I don't see her again. She says as soon as she calls the internet company, the Wi-Fi comes back. So we're clearly in for a wild ride tonight with exactly the topic that we've been planning on talking about, which is the doom of the West and how to solve that. I can't see you yet. Let me tell you, I can't see you yet. So here, who is here? We have 5 watching, one of which counts as me. So that means Mel, aloha. Etherzar, howdy. Etherzar, help us. We are in internet hell right now. Isaiah and Annie Z, good evening. Well, welcome. And hoping that Kilt shows up soon. She's typing. This is the internet. And you can hear the kitchen noises in the background of my home setting too. So you know exactly where I can't see the meeting in Skype. Okay, so you're going to get to watch me try to fix this Skype meeting. Ringing the group. Ring, ring, ring. She has joined. This is okay. I think she's there. Right. So, without further ado, welcome to the Doom of the West. And we'll do the intro now because, you know, then it looks like we kind of planned all of this. I don't know. It was really Doom-like. Don't leave, Kilts. Look, she's here, finally. We have really got to stop being so completely in sync with the theme of our episodes and having our internet match it, right? So we need to pick happier topics because we're clearly going to keep getting demons if we say, oh, we're going to talk about the doom, the gloom, the failures. Okay, so
it's all falling apart.
Oh no, here, paper eating bear is in fact claiming responsibility here. Indeed, 'twas the angels of the internet allowing me to be here on time, that we were clearly held up so that paper eating bear could get here. Well, okay.
Paper reading bear is an optimist.
This is not going to be an optimistic stream. It's like Vox has been doing some very heartening streams the last few days, saying, burn, be the light, be happy, break the spells. And I'm not feeling it. I'm really not feeling it. Abandon hope. I don't even know where to start with how I've been having to sit on my hands a lot. You know how it goes, right? It's like you get in a mood like this. It's like the you know what the problem with being a public person is? Professor so-and-so. When you're having a really crabby day, you cannot take it out on the anons on the internet and get away with it. Do they have these anons that have no personality except for whatever profile pic they give, and particularly in Milo's chat. I mean, I've been, I hang around in there every so often and just get upset. And I still have to behave. You know how awful that is?
Can't relate. I don't behave myself. I quit Milo's chat because I can't behave myself. I just went,
So when Professor Peterson is being sent into rehab to be retrained so that he can stop tweeting. If there's one thing I'm jealous of, it's like he's managed to get to be nasty on the internet in ways that I as a girl simply cannot sustain. I feel so sad. Well, why do the guys get to get away with it? And
we're not supposed to be nasty, you see.
Ooh,
we're supposed to be smiling even though everything's burning all around us.
We're supposed to be sweet and kind and motherly and take care of everyone. Yeah. I have actually thought about that. If I actually let out my inner snarkiness in the way that I've been feeling trying to get over this cold, it's like the horror, the terror and frustration and sadness that would be unleashed in our little corner of the internet because I turned mean. Oh my gosh, you guys have no idea. My autistic mask is I don't know whether it's as good as I thought it was. I've also been thinking about that. I'm like, I'm really sad if in fact this is what I've been working with all along, this mask of behavior and performance and role playing and such. And did you guys all see through it all along anyway? And I've just been kidding only myself. Have I been kidding anyone? I don't know. But actually, maybe I should test it. If I go all mean and nasty, will everybody be shocked? Then I'll know my previous mask worked. Bah. No, you don't get a second chance. This is think about all of the personalities, right? We have a few personalities to think about in our gallery of rogues and deceivers and heroes and who knows what for this evening. If I'm jealous of anybody, it's you get one bad day on the internet and you don't lose your entire persona. Mm-hmm. If there was a bad guy character you would get to be, who would you be?
Well, I mean, I'm nasty anyway, so I don't think anyone. I don't think that this is necessarily something that I need to think about.
Oh, so I realize isn't it clever of me? You're my shadow side. I got it that way, right? It's like kilts. Let's do these live streams together, and it'll be really great because we'll be in this conversation, and then two women talking, but hey, I get to be the light and lovely one, and you get to be the dark and realistic one. Is that it?
No.
No. All right.
No.
Not at all. No. What do you have to be grumpy about? I'm the one who's had a cold for the last 2 weeks. Oh, I blew it. Okay, I overloaded.
Yeah, because my brain went.
Well, pick one. Riff off of it. I think this is all my cunning plan to let you express my dark side. We're the same woman on opposite sides of the world.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
What a polarity that is. No. I wouldn't choose to be anyone else. I like being myself. The influences are all full of it. They're all like
Mm.
the last month.
You're gonna have to explain that to me, because it literally came out of nowhere. I had never really heard of him at all. So
well, it reached
that's curious.
It's reached critical mass in Transylvanian today. You may even notice that my hair is not happy.
I love your hair. I want your hair.
Now we're all out of the castle today, aren't we? Or in the castle, playing a very loud organ. Well, like Andrew Tate, he was a kickboxer who made a bunch of money off pimping a bunch of women, and then started Hustlers University, which was a pyramid scheme to get who are not very happy with our cultural situation to give him cash so that he could teach them how to be alpha males, and then hustled everyone out of millions of dollars and bought a bunch of
they don't see the problem in this. It's like you're going to pay some other man money to learn to be an alpha male. I mean, didn't it like didn't they consider that this was a bit of a problem?
It's very odd that there's so much to digest and like to dissect in this one point. How can you buy masculinity? That would be my first question. Is this a commodity or is it a character trait? And if it's a character trait and not a commodity, you can purchase, or like where does character come from? What is it? Can you just buy it? I could win the lottery tomorrow and have $500 million in my bank account. Like in terms of going into a different class, potentially because I have more cash.
Mm.
But the character, I mean, what am I going to bring with me with that 500 million? So this is a frustrating thing, seeing the internet discussions on his arrest in Romania and everyone talking about how the Matrix is up. Yeah. Even though he's been trafficking women in Romania and admitting that he's been doing it. So my fangs are out at the moment about this because how shall I put this? Would he have survived Romania? Probably not. But he's been the internet censorship and tech persecution now. So yeah, it's a black pill for feminine women to see this happening, I think. I'm speaking on behalf of myself.
So I mean, my brain stuck a few minutes ago on men paid him to learn. No, it's like men who were trying to pay him to learn how to be men.
Yes.
Which the commercial, I mean, it's like the prostitution of what, right? It's like, why would men think that they could pay another man, which is already in a kind of subservient relationship? Yeah. Pay another man to teach them to be what? The kind of man that other men pay to learn how to be men? I mean, the pyramid scheme here is curious.
Isn't it amazing? It was well named that he called it Hustlers University.
Yeah, it is kind of right there. But it sounds like a bad movie skit, right? School for Scoundrels. We're gonna learn how to. So I started with talking about how I'm frustrated. I've had a cold. My mask is down. I mean, I recognize, like, one of the things I've been sort of meditating on is the degree to which my being polite mask. I'm a Southern woman, right? I know what you have to put your mask on and behave properly, and learn how to pour the tea, or the equivalent to hostess, right? You grow up in the South knowing that you have to learn how to hostess, and the frustration and blackpilling I've been under is like, I'm tired of being polite to people that are just stupid, frankly. and as well, a teacher, I'm supposed to be, drawing people's understanding out of whatever they pay me to draw out their practice and understanding. So is that a hustle? I don't really think so. I think I can train people to read better and think better about history and so forth. But the social problem is this, persistent one is like, will you listen to me as your teacher if I've just called you dumb because you didn't read the assignment clearly? And you're being lazy. Why should I have to be nice to you because you're being lazy about not even actually? All of my students in Chicago pay attention, do the reading, and none of I'm not talking about any of you. This is, the sort of general feeling in conversation with people. It's like, do you want me to be impressed by you? You better, bring your top game now, or I'm just going to call you dumb. I do envy Vox and some of my fellow streamers, their ability to say, that's dumb, stop it.
Yes. Well, they're in a different role.
Well, okay, so is it a masculine or is it the teacher role, right? It's like, I'm sure Tate was having guys pay him to teach them to be what, tough? I don't even know how can you learn to be an alpha male by paying another man money? That to me has already like broken the bank. And we talked about, Jordan Peterson having to go through retraining right now because he's going to lose his psychiatric psychologist, whichever license he has to, do clinical work, if he doesn't, retrain on how he's been behaving on the internet. But loads of people have been paying him to teach them how to be something. Guys, it's right now, except for those of you who subscribe to unauthorized to my Forge of Tolkien channel, thank you. And maybe if someone gives me a super chat tonight, we'll have to rethink this whole process. I don't see any super chats yet. So we're completely unpaid in our doom spelling advice giving right now.
Well, you're not selling a formula.
This is true. I think maybe that's frustrating to people when I'm talking to them. It's like, I'm not going to tell you the answer. I'm going to show you the process.
Yeah. Thankfully, because that wouldn't be education. That would just be a kind of being propagandized through some. Whereas the Tate's and Tate's selling a formula for pickup artistry and financial exploitation. Peterson sells 12 Rules for Life, which was a kind of easy out people. It was like, oh, here, there are 12 party tricks and suddenly everything will be fixed. It becomes reduced to a kind of cliche of life. There's no discussion of sin and human nature and divine intervention, providence, and grace. It's just the mechanical things that you can do, and therefore if you follow this, you're going to end up with success or whatever you want. Nothing seemed particularly transformative, and they're not inclined to liberating the imaginations of the people that they're talking to either, which you certainly are. So that would be my way of making the distinction. It
sounds to me like, just a second, I gotta fix something. It sounds to me like you're saying, I'm never going to make money as an influencer. I feel sad now. Do I?
You want to make money as an influencer?
Well, do I? I don't know. We have Isaiah and Annie are saying advertising is all centered around selling sex, selling each sex their own ideal. Yeah, so I guess if we were doing makeup tips as women, or I'm wondering how well we've managed to fall into the middle of the problem of the doom of the West. What exactly is the doom that we're so frustrated from?
Well, it's the problem that I'm having looking at everybody responding to different influences or different personalities that are pushed out into the public sphere is that it's we're not having conversations about iconographic restoration in our culture. We're trying to supplement a loss of something that we're craving with cheap pantomime versions. That's my sense.
Yes. I think that
People
makes sense.
There's, I mean, I've got a few in the slideshow. Like we're going through the imagery, but I was thinking about what has happened, especially in Australia in the last few years, and why the Tate stand here is really, really.
Are you getting it from people in real life, or mainly in online conversations?
It's the online conversations. Also, some younger people here that have mentioned him and said, "What do you think about the what do you think about him and what he says?" Which is odd because I mean, even that, to ask me my opinion in the first place, they're probably not listening to that much. But no, this is the current thing to think about. So the wave now, an argument over the persecution of a masculine man, whereas I sit here wondering where he is, which a lot of people
where the masculinity is.
Where is it? I want to know where is this masculinity that is being persecuted? What is it?
Well, my opening image is our twin shaman now, and I think, I mean, this was I started with my own little doom spiral on realizing, I thought Jacob Chansley was for real, and it will be sad for me if in fact he is a CIA actor again, right? Because look, when Brazil has their not quite January 6th, not quite uprising, I mean, the level of feeling like, I mean, never mind Tate, we're going to talk about, exactly what kind of fakery Tate is involved in, but I'm not even sure where to be upset anymore, because you're realizing nothing feels real. I mean, I've said my mask and my sense of, what kind of roles and performances I'm giving, but a whole bunch of things feel like they broke right all at the same time. Like something happened right at the turn of the year that we are, well, one, in this time when when I was thinking about how we were going to like contain our frustration for this evening's discussion, say maybe we should do like predictions for the year and it's all going to be doom and gloom. And I'm like, I don't want to play that. I don't want to play predictions, but I do have this feeling, which is different for me from the last several years, is I really have no idea where anything is going. Zero. Right. I mean, we can doom spiral into, it could happen this or could happen that, because I had a very strong feeling 3 years ago with 2020. I knew what was coming, right? And we're all sitting here watching the kind of fallout of the way the vaccines and the lockdowns and the masks and the financial collapse that we knew all of that has played out to the point where, yeah, all that makes sense. And now I'm sitting here going, well, now what? it's like everything evaporated. And to find out that, I mean, we knew January 6th, and we were watching, people that are in the influencer and public figure circles that we follow being sent to prison right now. I actually met Nick Ox, the Proud Boy, this summer at Milo's confirmation. So I'm, pray for Nick, as he's now in prison for the next 4 years, and then others not in prison. And what happened to Jacob Chansley? Well, as far as I remember, he plea bargained something. He may still be in prison. There was some weird interviews with him last year, not looking very, shamanistic. He was just in prison garb and no makeup. If he's in fact, if all of that was completely fake, the one kind of, sort of performatively heroic and yet magically nonsensical what's going on character is himself a setup. I don't even know what's left, right? I don't know what's left to be entranced by or intrigued by or energized by, that there's nobody actually not even not wearing a mask to play a role as the shaman, but not wearing a mask to fit with anything real that's happening. Vox in his streams has been talking about the way in which we're all under, we're all being spied on by a fifth of the population taking, records on our everyday activities. It's like, it's very weird. I feel very, very weird to have this feeling of literally nobody's who they said they were at any given point. I mean, yeah, I don't even know where to go. Maskless and frustrated. I not sure how to behave with people.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, it's funny, maskless now. We've been masked up for years. Well, everybody's been masked up for years. I think we've just become, people were physically in masks. Now we're becoming aware of the social masking as well. It's continued here. So in Australia, the tennis is on right now, which is a huge deal for we'll become crazed tennis fans every year once the tournaments start. We've entered a kind of hypnotic oblivion where nobody wants to discuss what was going on even 12 months ago at the tennis.
Right, with Novak, right?
Everyone's with Novak, yeah, who I call Novaks out of respect and not as an insult, because what a wonderfully providential name that was. So he country masked but not vaccinated, and willing to cooperate with everyone in terms of the social distancing and everything, but that public sentiment against him was vicious. So he was deported. Now the media are telling everybody they have to watch what they say about him, because the audience and the crowds that are there at the tennis tournament are going to be removed and permanently banned if they are insulting him in public for his actions 12 months ago.
Wow.
And because this is now the new consensus, this is the mask everyone's going to wear. Respect and deference to the international superstar 12 months ago, calling for him to be vaccinated against his will. That's how bad things were in Australia. So for me, and kind of analyze that about face, it becomes very difficult to feel positive about human nature in terms of how people behave in crowds.
Right.
Popularly Vox Day. The Australian god is schizophrenic, absolutely amnesiac. So yeah, we're sitting here kind of enjoying the tennis with the meta narrative of what it means to have this. To have official support that his critics are going to be silenced.
Which is, I mean, it's not actually reassuring in a way, because
No.
last year the media get one official command: you must speak this way, and this year they get a different one.
Yes.
And he gets to benefit from the second one, but that doesn't make it okay now.
Personal request.
No. But I mean, it's like that we're being buffeted back and forth between these. You can say this, you can't say that, but the meta problem is identical. That we are under this rule that it's illegal to speak one way or the other.
We've just redirected the scapegoating, and it's gone from the ultimate scapegoat of the anti-vax champion, because the government, I hate using that term because it's like the officials that were in charge, the media and the majority of the talking heads down here treated him like he was the Robin Hood of anti-vaxxers. He was the poster boy for anybody who had any issues with the COVID policy and the mandates. Allowed to step foot on a tennis court, that he would inspire a complete mass civil disobedience down in Australia. They were absolutely and now he's greeted as though nothing happened, and it's very strange to see. Very, very strange to hear people discuss that he's playing without the 180-degree turn of like the general public. I mean, it wasn't just a small percentage of people here that were actively calling for him to be either conforming or banned. The country developed a very, very mainstreamed authoritarianism very, very quickly. So, yeah, in terms of the nature of the tournament now, it's kind of lost its magic, because I'm not looking at the same thing anymore. I'm tennis players as much as I'm paying attention to the strange manipulation that's happening behind the scenes.
Right. Well, we have him here juxtaposed with the Pope in their windows. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, so we put together our gallery of images this time to sort of draw out these tensions. And why did you put these two together?
Oh,
I mean, they're both spreading their arms to a crowd at the window, and I'm saying, thinking about the way in which you're describing some official something, but that it's also expressing the will of the people somehow, is now flipped on whether or not Novak is a good guy or a bad guy. And the way people talk about the papacy is, this is funny because I'm talking to my class on campus today about the conversion of England in the 6th century, and Pope Gregory sends the missionary to Kent to talk to the king, whose wife is already Christian. And there's this problem saying we think of the Pope as the controller of the whole story, but in fact the one who's truly in control of the story is Bede, the historian, describing Gregory as the main mover here, and the degree to which the Pope is or is not the kind of character that the media likes to either misunderstand what he is or portray him as. The sort of locus of anything like authority, and you were saying the magic is gone. I'm on on online I get constantly, it's like, oh, you're Catholic, you should believe this. I'm like, I don't, you really don't know what I believe one way or the other. One, because I know what the history of the papacy looks like, and it's not that cookie cutter version that that you've just described. But on the other hand, it is sad now. Benedict passed this week, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure what just happened, because now we only have one pope again. Benedict died.
Yeah,
And he was the one that was sort of being held out there as the one that was going to hold on to tradition and hold on to the meaningfulness of things that Francis is, trampling all over with his reforms and novelties and so forth. But by the end of it, it's like, I haven't frankly cared that much about popes ever. Much more interested in monasticism, which is why I like Benedict, because he was focusing on the monastic tradition. But the sort of aura of celebration, right? Would you go and be interested to see either of these men in the window? Is the athlete's magic versus the papal aura? I mean, it's like, what kind of aura does anybody have anymore? I think I lost her again. Yep.
I'm back.
Yes. Well done. Did you catch my last question? Where's the aura? Where's the aura gone?
Oh, the aura. No, it dropped out as you were.
I was talking about that. So say I was like, we're through them. It's thinking about these all of these, random. They feel random, but they feel significant juxtapositions that we keep finding ourselves in. And you've got Novak at the window and Benedict at the window, and we're thinking, like, one interesting element of this juxtaposition is the celebration that we have of athletes as the our heroes of the day, when basically they play a game, right? He hits a little ball back and forth, big deal, as compared with the Pope, who is, I'm not good at celebrity in these terms. I've never gotten excited about a Pope one way or the other, really. Sorry, popes don't excite me. I liked Benedict for what he wrote about the liturgy and his championing of culture and monasticism and things like that. But, and it's kind of cool when you're in the presence of someone who apparently has that much power. But the reason that Benedict resigned was he felt like he couldn't affect anything properly, that he was too weak to be able to fight the things that he needed to fight in his own court, in the Curia. So it's like the sort of evaporation of all kinds of, and you were saying the magic had gone out of watching the game, and I started thinking about that the magic has gone out of the papacy too.
I need to ask you why you've particularly concerned about the popes.
Because I see it as a historical institution that has had, there have been some very great men who were, Pope Gregory the Great was a great thinker and leader, and he seems to have had a powerful character that encouraged, he saved Rome in the plague back in the 6th century. Most of the popes, as far as I know, have no personalities. They just don't. They're lawyers throughout the Middle Ages. I mean, they're significant for creating the particular kind of institutional structure that the church has, creating courts for dealing with the papal courts in the Middle Ages. They mainly dealt with internal arguments among the clergy. The laity didn't tend to be, I mean, the only thing that the laity were really terrifically affected by were the kings who were trying to divorce their first wives and get remarried. It's that's kind of topical always. But the popes throughout the Middle Ages, they didn't typically tend to be, they didn't have the personalities of saints like Francis or Francis. I mean, it's interesting that Francis took the name that he did. I mean, both of them. Francis wasn't a pope, but the pope we have now is the first of that name. Benedict, he was the 16th. There'd been a lot of Benedicts, but the reason that Benedict was great was not because he was a pope, is because he founded the order of the monasticism. They take the Gregory name because Gregory the Great, but he wasn't great. He was great as pope, but he was already great as a senator. He's a senatorial family in Rome. He had dictated already this incredible commentary on Job, the Moralia in Job. It's one of the great spiritual treatises of the period. I mean, he was great as pope, but he was great for other reasons. I just don't have that many characters in my head. And then in the modernity, they all name themselves pious. As far as I'm concerned, I can't tell the difference, right? So there's a kind of, they have this institutional place, but they didn't really seem to me to be personalities very much. I guess John Paul II maybe has a personality to me. Benedict sort of does, but that's not because of his papacy. It's because of what he wrote prior to becoming pope.
Well, I'm thinking of the two men on the balcony. They're both involved in courts in some fashion.
I like that. Very nice.
Yeah. The court thing is going to just keep its ugly head bar. It's usually the balcony where Novak was standing and addressing the crowds usually would be seen as a very frivolous thing. We're not talking about the Pope on the balcony giving a papal address or a sermon, or political leaders that are on balconies like Mussolini on his little balcony in Rome. He was just standing there with the tennis racket and a tennis ball, but suddenly he's like, his presence on that balcony in Australia was almost as significant as seeing Benedict outside. And the reason I say this is because period of constant hard lockdowns and curfews. So even to see somebody that you knew outside in public unmasked would have been a shocking thing at many moments throughout that period. But it was a shock to see somebody famous who's usually walking around unmasked permanently, in the sense that they can never be anonymous.
Right.
Someone like that overexposed. So seeing someone like that covered up when he entered the country, and then being exposed to everybody while he was battling to stay in the country. So I on the other hand, we don't have people on balconies spiritual messages in this continent.
Right.
The balcony address is not it's not an emphasis here, because we don't have old Europe. We're not connected to old Europe. So generally, when we've got people of great importance in Australia talking to the public, we'll try to make it seem like they are, as they absolutely can pretend to be. And they will purposefully put themselves in situations where they're masking with the pretense of I don't know, I don't want to overuse the word normal, but the pretense of being average, or not as important as they are in the lives of the people that are around them. So the people that...
So on the one hand, they are important, but they're performing the... I mean, this is what I did like about Benedict as Pope, that he did maintain the ceremony and therefore recognize that he is actually, as that, in that role, an incredibly important person. But it's because of the role, maybe not, it's like you're chosen to be in the role, but that Benedict did seem to have a better appreciation for the significance of the ceremony, which Francis has obviously decided he doesn't want. So he's anti-ceremony in his performances.
Yes, so so that's the thing. There's this ceremonial role that you take on if you're entering certain positions. Like Benedict, he brought back the papal red shoes, right?
Right.
Was that him? Yeah. So even when he was putting on an officious garment to signal to everybody that he was carrying the weight, well, the tradition, then to contrast this, the Australian officials that were involved in the decision making around COVID and all of the mandates were dressed in casual clothing from hiking stores. They looked, yeah. It wasn't even a case of wearing a bad suit. They weren't even wearing suits half the time, and purposefully dressing in a kind of office casual. What would you call it? Like white collar casual. And I'm sure that they were doing it deliberately.
Oh, definitely.
Instantly, there was no mark of wealth on them. They were signaling to going through exactly what everyone else was going through, because they were dressed like they were going for their allocated 1 hour walk at all times in public. Yeah, so we had this crisis of we had a crisis of costume, and the balcony address everybody was interesting because it was like he was the only one who was admitting the significance of what he was doing, because this was a diplomatic problem here.
Right.
So instead of him just arriving as a tennis star to smack a ball around, he has a Serbian diplomatic pass. So suddenly the entire fiasco that was going on was a diplomatic problem. The Serbs in Australia were raging angry at the situation. And then, of course, back home in Serbia, saying Novak is like Christ. He's being persecuted like Christ. Like completely over the top Yugoslavs that are letting it fly. But I didn't see that as an overreaction. It was like they were explaining the significance while everybody down here was a naughty, a kind of childish infringement on the rules that everybody else was following, and he was in detention, like a school detention, instead of it's a huge scandal. So there's issues then with who we're recognizing socially significant, culturally significant. We've kind of forgotten that that balcony image was a sort of reminder that there's a contest that's always going on between the people that are in a situation that we're not very, very closely. I'm trying to form.
No, so I'm actually. It's all happening. It's all coming together. Go back to the shaman, right? The reason I was so taken with the Q shaman Chansley, one was because Jonathan Peugeot had, on the day of January 6th, 2 years ago, said something like, I predicted that things were going to get weird. Here's the Q shaman, right? This strange, performative oddity showing up in the Senate chamber. And I did various blog posts about it, and I've been thinking about the January 6th a lot, because we've had a lot of reminders of the anniversary in the last week, and realizing that what I was drawn to was, one, if Chansley's an actor and at another level, then I'm gonna have to rethink all of this. But what it seemed to me that he understood was the ceremonial power of what was going on. I mean, that he goes into the Senate chamber and does as prayer in his costume and such like that. But even if these guys are both CIA operatives and they're somehow actors, they are at least playing to the reality of there's powerful energies playing out at some level, and either we spend all of our time in the modern world pretending those energies don't exist, being caught by them by surprise. I mean, you're talking about going back to Novak and the Pope, that the populace last year was in one frenzy and this year is in another, and those balconies, I was thinking when you're saying that too, nobody speaks from balconies in the United States either. I mean, the only like balcony space that has ever happened from that now I can think of is that terrace in the Capitol, right? So that there's something about that elevation in the architectural elevation. You could see the person speaking physically out to the crowd and saying, there's power here. There's some kind of power here. And the person on the balcony speaking to the crowd is, again, Peterson had said this, and I thought this was one of the smarter things he has said about how the demagogue is mirroring the crowd back, right? That you're speaking, and Mussolini or Hitler or whatever, they take power from the crowd and they mirror the crowd, and there's some kind of energy going between the two of them, Vox Populi, Vox Dei. Somehow we're simultaneously in a situation where you're blinking in and out. Okay, you're back. Good job. Well spotted. That we both acknowledge the powers of the crowd and are the powers that be, whatever powers they are always trying to control that crowd, like the Roman emperors presumably did with their ceremony and their balconies and so forth. And the feeling of not knowing what's going to be happening, from my perspective, it's like I have no sense of any of these things. I don't know what the crowd is thinking. I don't know what the leaders are actually thinking. I don't know who is in fact in power. I mean, I read this very interesting piece. I get news clippings every day from the university news service because they do a little email, and therefore they're always quoting my colleagues, and I'm reading something about that. And there was one that was quoting John Mearsheimer, who is now famous because of his speeches on the Ukraine. And the surreal quality I had reading it was about these people at, I think it's Harvard, some kind of powerful school for business and media, politicians and stuff like that. One, I mean, I'm reading it because Mearsheimer was quoted in it saying something about, no, Steve Walt was quoted in it, and he and Mearsheimer, it's like, I don't see, blah, blah, blah. It's like, none of these people mean anything. They don't make sense. I suddenly realized I was in the presence in this article of people with levels of power and influence and money and connections I had no ghost of an idea even existed. And it was kind of terrifying, right? We get we the people get the athletes and the singers. You and I have been talking about Ye a lot, right? The comedians, the sort of players, the characters. These are not the people with any sort of power, except insofar as those guys working at that Harvard, I forget what the school is. It's a policy school. Deploy them in some way, or think they can, or want to control them, or and Pope Benedict, finding that he had to resign because as this scholar, as this theologian, as this professor from Regensburg, he had no idea, even though he'd been in the midst of these people for his whole professional life, how to deal with that level of something. Right? It's like Andrew Tate seems like a comic character in this context. It's like, so what? He's been arrested. He was influencing guys. He made a lot of money, and there's the so what that he's if he's sex trafficking women, that's bad. But the feeling of not having any location for actual either authority or influence is kind of creepy. What do I have next in our slides? We have
don't have
Benedict's
clear idea
hands holding the
about me.
rosary and Tate with his cigar.
Oh.
Where does power lie if it's in the rosary? I realize my little fidget toy looks stupid when I'm playing with that one, so I'm holding my rosary right. Hold your rose. Where is the power? Where is any of this actually residing? I'm not sure it's in the people, but I'm not sure it's in these super duper wealthy people either, because if they don't control us when we wear masks or don't get their jabs, or at what level of control is it actually happening? Which is why what's happening in Brazil matters, right? The degree of popular uprising, is that a few hundred people and it's nothing? I'm still astonished at how our government officials are playing out as if January 6th was a big deal. I mean, I think that is so fascinating to me, that they really, really, really need that whatever kind of event it was, with, relatively minor damage, and no, in fact, significant interruption in the processes of the government. Why is that still such a big deal, as compared with, for example, the entire National Guard being brought out for the inauguration 2 weeks later and nothing happening? I mean, there's a sort of surreal quality of who is in fact in control of anything. Now I'm gibbering. Oh, look, Ken did a super chat test. Look, Ken, 20. Ooh, we had a super chat test. 20 coins. I don't know what that means. I don't even know what these things mean. Okay. So, Mel is talking about tribal mass, shadow government, the invisible hand, God, Congress's passion play. Everyone. Well, this is I think where we're at this place. We've now spent our 6 months in the Ark, sailing around looking for significance and patterns and such, and then I get a cold and suddenly there aren't any left. No more patterns, no more meaning. The Pope is dead. Andrew Tate's a fake.
Doom. We're in court right now. That's how it feels.
How so?
I feel like massive idle divorce or separation. Families were splitting up. Friends, the social structure was disintegrating around everything. And I feel like now we're in court somehow, trying to figure out the dynamics of how it disintegrated so quickly, and find the reasons behind it, find the people that we can. Because I had a gut feeling that this would be something that would happen in Australia specifically. I mean, I rail on this country all the time, but I mean, in here and the rest of the world, you all saw what we did. So I mean, I'm not going to pretend that we were better than we were. We were the worst. And I had a feeling that there would be a kind of collective shame over it that needed to be dealt with in a different way. And people are going to be looking at different ways of processing it. Really pointing our fingers at people and saying, you did this to me, and therefore, I don't have enough fingers, and also that kind of kicks off a Hutu and Tutsi situation, because we don't even have tribal eye on in order to figure out who was hurting who. It was intra-tribal violence in a lot of cases. So we need a court of some description to deal with the tensions of everything. Because we can't put ourselves on trial in this process.
I think this is the court thing is very interesting. I've got the next juxtaposition. We have Pell in front of the county court and Novak on court. Ken has explained 20 coins should mean $20 to you in kilts. Let's see if that happens. Woo!
I'm rich.
We're rich. We're rich. Paper Eating Bear is asking, wasn't Pell targeted partly because of Vatican financial corruption? Yes, right. And this is the sort of layers of. I wish I'd thought that I was going to talk about Steve Walton, John Mearsheimer, and whatever that Harvard thing is. The amount of money sloshing around in the world, and that has. I mean, we've been sort of tip of the iceberg feeling of the pressure that we were all put under to get the jab, wear the masks, you know. I'm not afraid right now. It feels sort of calm and everybody's exhausted, and I just, you know, getting over this cold, and I'm even on campus now where, you know, I had to fight my battle last year about masking and not vaccine and things like that. It's mostly just feels normal again, which is amnesiac and surreal at the same time. But surely all of the things that we've just been fighting didn't just vanish. That all of those energies and forces and desires to be in control of the world, they've still got to be, but it's like they've dissipated somehow. They can't be gone. They can't be gone. And Pell, okay, so Cardinal Pell died yesterday. And the responses to his death on the internet have been interesting, because some are going, oh, good, another pedophile is dead. Apparently not, therefore, knowing much in detail about what happened in Melbourne when he was sent to jail and then exonerated and released. Or, as Paper Eating Bear is asking here, wasn't it, in fact, about something else, right? That they needed Pell out of the way, though he'd been appointed in the position that he had by Francis. They needed Pell out of the way because he was about to expose some of this stuff. I have a book here written by one of my friends. Oh, look, and with a foreword by Professor Rachel Fulton Brown, whoever that is. So Milo wrote a book. I'd never heard of her. Nobody seems to have heard of her. I've not achieved. Oh, no, wait. We need to celebrate this properly. Our very first ever super chat from our friend Ken, which is now going to make us rich. We are now officially influencers. We've influenced Ken to give us $20.
I didn't have to be nice to do it.
Yes, we did. We've been writing poetry with Ken for years now. I think this is internal funding that we've been getting.
We're not supposed to tell them that.
We could say that.
Now you're getting paid to be on the internet.
Oh, no, yes, now we have officially been paid to be on the internet by Ken. Thank you, Ken. Yeah. He should get a lot of attention for giving us our first ever super chat. True. This is good.
Ken is amazing.
We're going to talk about Ken. We love Ken. Ken is a poet. We are friends with Ken. That Milo wrote this book back in 2018 on, it says, Diabolical: How Pope Francis Has Betrayed Clerical Abuse Victims Like Me and Why He Has to Go. Okay, so this is back in 2018, which means before Pell was actually tried and sentenced and sent to jail. And already before any of that happened, Milo understood what was going on. And I'm going to read you a little bit, because I think it's important to read this into the record, about why exactly Pell would end up in trouble and therefore in court, and therefore the kinds of invisible influences, maybe that's our theme today, the invisible influences that are playing out in the way in which both Novak and Pell were gotten after in Australia, right? Okay. So this is Milo, what he says, and this was in 2018. The Vatican Bank is one of the most disreputable and ineptly managed financial institutions in the world. For decades, it operated as a tax haven for wealthy Italians and as a money launderer's paradise. This may be topical to Tate, too. We don't know. Maybe not the Vatican, but right, money laundering and the flow of this kind of funding that's going everywhere. It is essentially an offshore bank in the middle of Rome, subject to its own laws, and was therefore, for a while, resistant to demands for information from the Italian authorities, not themselves always the perfect model of good governance. Reference to an article from The Guardian, Can Pope Francis Clean Up God's Bank? International media scrutiny of the bank is said to be one of the reasons Benedict XVI resigned, admitting privately to friends that he was unable to tackle the entrenched special interests in Rome. So why Benedict resigned, it was the money, among other things. After taking some time to admire Francis for wearing a plastic watch and dining in the Vatican canteen, the Guardian's Paul Vallely has given a decent account of how Cardinal George Pell, appointed by Francis, began a review of the bank's operations. Pell had successfully overhauled the church's finances in Sydney and Melbourne. The Australian son of a former heavyweight boxer, Pell is a political and doctrinal conservative who speaks aggressively and does not believe in man-made climate change. He is a cult hero among conservative Catholics. You can imagine what the Lavender Mafia think of him. Vallely notes grudgingly that, quote, for all his conservatism, Pell had for years been a vocal critic of the Roman Catholic bureaucracy and its corruption, end quote. Pell moved quickly and made enemies. A straight dealer to the point of unbearable bluntness, especially in the delicately perfumed and gold-embroidered world of the Holy See, Pell probably didn't anticipate getting tripped up by dirty tactics. In this case, stories leaked to the media about, you guessed it, clerical abuse. The press reports were coincidentally timed, arriving just as Pell's reforms of the bank began to take hold. It was alleged that Pell was soft on child abuse thanks to offhand comments he had made years before in typically ribald and direct Australian fashion. It was suggested that he may himself have some questions to answer about covering up abuse. Then the allegations widened to direct accusations of historic sex abuse, at which point Pell had to put his work at the bank on hold. Now Pell is back in Australia, this was in 2018, trying to clear his name, and his reforms are stalling, just as the intriguers intended. This is how efforts to clean up the Roman Catholic Church usually end. So we are mourning Cardinal Pell's passing and Benedict's passing because they were, in one way or another, both caught up in this cycle of corruption that we are clearly still going to be affected by, and yet we can't find who's doing it.
No. Suddenly we're all in Italy together. Not sure who's behind the person on the balcony. And things are don't know exactly where all of as you said, like the energy that was swirling all around us is gone. It hasn't disappeared. It's just withdrawn direct pressure.
Well, we can feel that it's sort of pulled away, but we would be foolish. I mean, it'd be very, very foolish to think that they've quit. Obviously, they haven't.
But
so what do we expect? I mean, do we look for what to expect? I mean, we wanted to do our doom spiral video today. It was like saying doom. It's like, but from where, right? And I was thinking earlier, it's like always, are we going to do signs of the times? Are we going to do how everything's? This is the feeling of vacuity, chaos, emptiness. That's Rome.
Yeah.
Well.
What Rome feels like.
Oh yeah?
Time doesn't behave the same way as the rest for some reason. Maybe it's just me, but that was my impression. Rome is a strange place.
Well, from what you're telling me, Australia is a strange place too. Your dream time and your sense of are we in the present in these stories to the degree to which that's Pell in Melbourne, right? And is that Novak in Melbourne, right? That what's going on down there in Melbourne? What kind of energy nexus do you have? We had some. What else were you worrying about? Now?
That city was originally going to be called Batmania.
The city Melbourne was going to be called Batmania.
Yeah, Batmania.
Batmania.
Yeah,
like
Batman.
Bats, like Batman's.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, Batman. I just think that's funny because it kind of set the scene. It's a weird city. Everything horrible that's happening in Australia is happening down in Melbourne.
In Batmania.
In
the
Batmania,
bat theme is going to be coming out here. Okay, so we've got Isaiah and Annie gave us 10 coins. More money for wine and kilts boots. Ooh, you need boots, definitely. Ken is saying,
you.
look, the fever of generosity is spreading. Nice.
These
Casey.
goths need boots.
The goth needs boot. Casey, this is not a
strong.
super chat, but I'm reading chats now because they're helping us think through this through. The Vatican was cut off of SWIFT the week Benedict decided to resign the papacy. That's yes. Okay, so the bankers, the banking energy is here. SWIFT access was then immediately restored to the Vatican, but they were showing they could do it. Benedict resigns. They cut SWIFT off. Here it is, like exactly who is the most powerful. And I my take at the moment is, and we're sort of playing with this in the Drake Alchemicus that we're writing right now. The dragon doesn't really manifest in any one character. The dragon is this. It's like, you know, in Excalibur when Merlin's talking about the dragon's breath, and it's like, where is the dragon? It's somehow out there. It's somehow very, very real. But anytime you try to pin it on a particular person, it's not that person. That person just turns back into a human being that the dragon abandons.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah and Annie Z say, on the whole spookiness of hidden power, we have seriously forgotten that political power is people. Well, and this is, the shamans were both meant to be allegedly representing popular movements and yet are being deployed theoretically because, like, look, I think that the Brazilian guy may be mimicking the Q shaman, but whatever, right? One way or the other, there's a recognition of the power of the crowd, the populace, and the desire of these guys on balconies or in banks or in courtrooms or in Congress to control them. But, you know, I used to think until like, 2 weeks ago when I got this cold, I used to think that I was paying sufficient attention that I was going to be able to watch all this story play out and it was going to be, going to happen in the way that I was predicting it. And I don't even feel like Scott Adams now because I'm not claiming that I ever did predict things, but I did predict things properly in my own head and on my blog 3 years ago with the COVID stuff. And I don't know what's going to happen now.
No, it's very strange. It's like the normal rules of the game.
Have they though?
It just feel I'm not sure.
Okay, Isaiah and Annie Z have a bit more.
I'm going by vibes.
EMJ, no, this is what we're trying to find the vibe again. We've lost the vibe.
Yeah.
Like EMJ says, wealth isn't gold, it's labor. Yes. And there's something, it's like one of our other themes we were trying to sort of play through with is, where are the men gone? Where is the labor? Where are the men? What is the work? Soros can have billions without people. He has no power. And then with Kanye, he had billions and it was taken because he influenced people wrongly. Mel's saying no more 2020 vision. Yeah, there's something weird right now.
Yeah,
we were looking. Strange. Mel showed us earlier this evening this little comic. I think it was Saturday Night Live, of like COVID brain where we've forgotten everything. I do recognize that a lot of the COVID spell stuff of, mask up and be bewildered and be told to do this and then change the rules and do that and constantly switching back and forth was in fact to confuse us all so that gaslighting. We've done it. We did our episode on gaslighting. We know we've been gaslit over and over and over again.
Yes. Well, it's happening all the time. With the even the people that are supposed to be remedying all of this are in a kind of gaslighting of people.
Well, I mean, so now I'm showing Novak in his mask and then with his cross on the mountain. Yes, so they're covered or heroic. I mean, some of the problem here is everybody's, constantly swirling around and looking for a leader. I mean, the best we get is costume characters, right? Pretend superheroes or tennis players. I mean, we are in trouble if this is the leadership of our civilization, is guys who play sports.
Yes.
And that's it. Not just they play sports and then are, training their souls for something else. that there is, it's like you've taken the only thing you train for is the sport, which has, I admit, very great spiritual benefits and clearly gives strength of character, as Novak has shown, but that it's kind of like, okay, so we've got nothing left but the form of the desire for heroic activity. Or costume guys pretending to be bull, warriors. There's no warriors.
Yes.
But I'm not even sure who we'd fight. Pell tried to, and he got, sent to prison. Benedict tried to, and he felt himself too frail to stand up against other old men. I'm not sure. What is it that we're fighting?
That's a good question. Well, Tate's fighting the Matrix.
Tate's fighting. Okay, here's one
Matrix.
answer.
The Matrix.
The Matrix. How about Xi and Putin? Are we fighting them?
Well, they'd like us to. According to Vox's blog, we're going to be summoned to enter combat against the Chinese, because I don't think that's going to work very well at all.
No,
but,
I mean it's horrible and comic, and this is where at least I'm deeply grateful to Vox for at least it's like none of this is going to come as a surprise. I remember having an argument with one of my colleagues in my department, I think 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Maybe it was last. I can't remember. COVID memory I've lost. He actually is a specialist on the history of modern China, and I was asking him then do you think Taiwan is gonna fall? And he said that's ridiculous. I think this was last year. And I'm sort of wondering now about, it's like when Taiwan gets absorbed by China, is anybody going to be surprised? Or are we just going to all have been gaslit so completely that everybody will just have forgotten that was never going to happen? Including my colleague. I want to kind of like plant markers and ask people, it's like those who should be getting the appointments at these, it's not the Kennedy School of Business, it was a different one. Big think tanks that are apparently in control of all of this influence and insight. Are any of them able to predict right now exactly how all of this is going to play out? Certainly nobody in the West seems to be paying any proper attention to anything. No, it is horrifically. I mean, what Zelensky and Biden are our guys? Yeah, sure.
The advice that I should be learning Chinese, which I kind of knew already, is to learn Mandarin. See, now this is where I find it really, really interesting. So I put a series of pics in. I don't know how far down the road this one is, but the
I could look. I could see whether our magic's working. You want to see? You want me to see what the next one is? Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I think you'll like this.
Did it work?
It's catfishing of two sorts.
Oh yes. We've got the new masculine influencer who's essentially run around catfishing all of these guys out of their money. He's top G, and he's the alpha for all of these sad boys that need their way into mass. I will. Honestly, it's the kind of things. It's the kind of thing that women do when they're like, I'm going to buy exercise videos. Like in the 90s when they still had VHS tapes, and everyone would buy exercise videos, and then no one would do the exercises, but they had like a stack of 10. A lot of people like that. You'll buy your way into looking like an aerobics model. So it's the same thing. But he's been catfishing everyone, right? So he's been fishing everyone and cleaning out their wallets. Meanwhile, Putin's a completely different hustle, and I find that really amazing. I had to put those pictures together because the supposed enemy of the West and the enemy of the liberal world and democracy and every the boogeyman is out fishing, taking PR shot to show everybody that he's a reliable, stoic, masculine archetype. And you're by presenting these images to the public because it works. I mean, you look at them and you think, yeah, he looks like what he's doing and fulfilling his role as the political patriarch of the Russian Federation. But at least in that example, he is out of other people's lives to a degree that requires him to do something to help them. So,
well, I'm thinking about this simply on the level of image.
yeah,
And that we had Novak on the balcony with his tennis racket without his shirt on. And now we have Putin, who back in the previous picture is dressed in the usual costume of the men of the world, which I've also been thinking about how absolutely boring the modern men's clothing is. It's like you maybe get a fancy tie, but Beau Brummel has a lot to answer for. It's interesting that the way the British conquer the world is make all the men dress in the most boring way possible. Oh wait, so don't tell Milo that, because you can have very well cut suits from Savile Row and stuff like that. But it's like the performative glamour or prestige or power is, as you were saying, the Australians were walking around as if behaving like they're in office casual or something. But even when all of these heads of state are dressed up, they don't get to have military uniforms with lots of medals and things like that. They have to, if they're going to play the power game now, they have to dress like these business guys with the plainest suits they can possibly find and very plain ties. And I mean, Putin and Xi in this picture, I mean, you could tell the difference because they're standing in front of different flags, but otherwise one's taller than the other. I don't know. I mean, I want shaman guys with hats on and paint and sticks that you shake and that there's some kind of performative magic, or at least the Pope with his red shoes, for goodness sake. It's interesting how we're in this visual rhetoric of the most powerful people have the least distinctiveness.
Yes, because they look like it's like everyone's dressed like they're bank employees.
They're dressed like they're what?
They're dressed like they're bank employees.
Yes. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they are.
Like even the socialists. I mean, Xi. Am I pronouncing that right? Because I need to learn.
I'm pronouncing it the way you do.
Now.
I'm going with the way Vox seems to say it. So we go. Casey so says conformity couture.
I'm going to end up streaming while I'm getting invaded by China, and you guys are going to be watching me throughout the whole thing, having a nervous breakdown in public on the internet. Anyway,
we'll be here for you. We've gotten $30 in super chats tonight. Yeah, I need to drink some more of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. I'll stock up on my Russian vodka. Maybe I'll start to talk like this. They'll go easy on me. But
I need to get back to fencing practice and pinch with all my Russian friends. But carry on.
Well, like they're supposed to be urban nationalists, and they're dressed identically. They're not in ethnic costume.
Right.
Xi is Chinese. He just looks like West guy who works for a bank. Same with the Russian Chad, who should be wandering around like he's half step people, half Orthodox Roman emperor. You
Something.
expect something a little
Yes,
bit more
exactly.
zhuzh, but no, same thing. You can't tell the nations apart. You can't even tell the leaders of the nations look the same. That's how much they've homogenized. Quite funny that they're anti-globo homo, because they're not in ethnic dress.
Well, these guys, I mean, so whatever they are, and we can admit that probably what my colleagues on campus, except for maybe John Mearsheimer, although I think his politics are not mine, but that's okay. That all of these guys, they're all controlled out of that same business school thing that I
Yeah.
can't remember what is it at Harvard.
Philosophically or literally?
Well, we don't know, do we?
Mm-hmm.
Because as everyone loves showing, it's like Putin has gone to a lot of the same meetings and the WEF and the this and that. I forgot. I mean, it's like, why should we pay any attention if in fact all of these organizations just blend into one single organization that has, different flags on the walls of the different buildings where they happen to meet in different parts of the world, but that they are in fact a single entity. And that even this, with Xi and Putin apparently standing up against the West, I mean, people are also saying it's like Biden's never going to go against Xi. He works for him. The degree to which we actually have. Okay, so.
I mean,
what's funny about this is I'm not even sure the people of the world are that much against each other, except for. And this maybe goes in too weird of a place, because there clearly are contests between nations going on, like actual, animosities between peoples. But the major one constantly is showing it's the people against their own governments, which is what those shaman are supposed to be demonstrating.
That seems to be more common.
But what are we actually against? If we're against our own governments, what are we actually against?
I'm not against my government. I just don't know where they've gone. Because we have constitutional parliament. We're supposed to have British Parliament. The sovereign of the country is King Charles. So, in my mind, I sort of think, where is the sovereign? When people are often having discussions about their government in a Republican frame of mind, but I'm not in that frame of mind. I'm a monarchist living in a pseudo-monarchy. That's probably how you would even class it. It's odd being a Commonwealth subject. See, I almost said citizen. See how they get you? Republicanism. It's very odd being a Commonwealth subject, because we strange kind of vague. We're living in that vague, strange place where we're kind of a monarchy, but we're behaving like a democratic republic culturally, because we've been so Americanized with the Britishness left in us to function like a British colony, but we're still officially kind of a British colony, even though we were given independence, but it's not real independence because it's foreigner. And then in all of this mixture, we've got people arguing over globalization, which doesn't make sense, because Australian means you've been globalized.
Right.
Like, I met a British guy the other day whose car had broken down, not far from here. And I said, "Oh, you're Brit?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm from Derbyshire. Are you British?" I said, "No." And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from here." "I'm from here." He wouldn't know, because that's the extent of Australian. So I went on a tangent, but I was going somewhere with this.
Well, I feel like we found all of the really important things, and to do it feels like we're fighting fog, right?
Yeah,
Is the problem
there's
masculinity? Is the problem? I mean, so Mel is saying we're against usury. Yes. I mean, a lot of, I think what we're against is this feeling of utter loss of identity, which is that our saying that we've taken the masks off, whatever roles that we were playing, and I mean, I as a professor at this university that has people that it's not the Kennedy School of Government, it's something else. It's a different entity. I think it's appropriate that I can't remember, because it's like, it was my main impression in reading this article was these people have so much power and I've never even heard of them.
Yeah.
So there is this vagueness to everything. I'm talking about how much money they have, how many boards they sit on, how many, government appointments they've had, how many business arrangements they've been party to, and saying, wow. And every so often I think of myself as moderately important because, I don't know, I teach at a big university, but I'm clearly not, right? I'm clearly this in the influencer world. I mean, anybody that we know, that we can see, I mean, bless his heart, even Milo, none of us have whatever it is that ends up with being able to make Novak have to wear a mask. But what is it that made Novak have to wear that mask? Or going back, that Tate, he wants to be an alpha guy, right? I've got Tate holding his Quran and being taken into court, I think, in Romania, right? And Putin fishing, the fishing is happening. Tate wants to train men to be alpha. What does that even mean? Training to be an alpha male. You should be at this this Harvard school thing that I can't remember what it is. I could probably look it up, but that would kill my sort of vagueness, which is kind of our point today.
Yeah, it's odd. It's like a hustle is denial of class. It's a denial that class exists. It's a denial that there are classes that you will never be a part of, which would be normal and healthy if we were living in a normal kind of cultural environment. But we have this strange pseudo equality that's opposed of everything. So the people that are making decisions on whether or not Novak has to wear that, at the same time presenting in public in hiking gear, but then we know that they're not really influential as everybody feels they are, because they're not they haven't been decisions that would have led someone like Cardinal Pell to end up on trial for the scandal that he was on trial for. So we're kind of in this whole of mirrors environment, and it's potentially an uncomfortable thing to admit that there are strata our civilization that we will never see, that we will never be able to access. Instead of having the people that we want influencing us on a balcony, I think that's the most important, powerful part of the imagery that we put together with Novak and Pope Benedict on the balcony, because we want to see leader in the open.
We want to see the leader in the open. Yes, that's very, very, that's great.
And Tate refuses to be anywhere but out in the open. He purposefully engineered a public career, if you can call it that. But he purposefully engineered public persona. University, and so there, and I'm going to be everywhere, plaster me all over the internet, put me on TikTok, and put me on all of these other social apps, and get me algorithms that want to be out in front. As I'm saying this with you, it's to me that's the attraction with him, because I think
that he was actually
are...
public, or there. So I flip back and forth. Our next image is this Australia guy who I have no idea who is, but he's shaking hands with Xi, I think.
That's our Prime Minister.
Who's he? Wait.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. I have no idea who he is. They both are wearing. It's like he's got a light tie. Xi has a dark tie, a purple tie, kind of.
Less depressing a public figure than the woman who was Prime Minister of the UK for like 16 days or whatever it was. You remember? There was a female Prime Minister.
Was it Liz?
She's not flying very well. Yeah,
Truss,
who cares?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm amazed I remember that.
Boring one.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad? Not the first one. Made her presence very felt where she was. But they had to get rid of this one because she wasn't working out very well. So this guy, that's Anthony Albanese.
I've now forgotten his name completely.
Well, this is the thing. We're seeing Xi with Putin.
Right.
Horse riding, fishing Putin. This guy who no one knows at all. I mean, he looks like he just walked out of a job in the post office. Like, there's nothing about him signals that he's carrying the great weight of the responsibility of governance over a country. Nothing signals it whatsoever. This is the man.
Possibly because he's not. I mean, it's like this is the problem. So I'm thinking back to.
But they're not even trying.
They're not even trying. Like, the degree to which the popes that I'm not impressed by, because I can't remember who they are, and I'm not really. I mean, the degree to which a bureaucracy creates the structure for the office. I mean, once you've created a sufficiently complex bureaucracy, the bureaucracy itself is the thing that's in power, and the person who happens to be sitting in the hat at the time. I mean, that's why Benedict resigned, allegedly, at least according to Milo, that he felt like he couldn't influence anything, even though he was Pope.
Well, I talked about this with you in one of our previous streams. I said I refuse to blame the government for what happened. I blame the bureaucracy, and people were very confused about why I made that distinction. Right. How can you say the bureaucracy and not the government? But they're not. I just couldn't formulate it in a way that was clear. The bureaucracy it's a zombie. It's moving.
It is a zombie because everybody does.
Yeah.
They do their jobs. They know that what they do matters, but the sort of, I mean, this sort of feeling of there is it's not even Gollum, because a Gollum would be like a robot. That there is this entity in control that nobody is. There's no human being that is actually making any of these decisions. So there's a kind of Vokes bureaucracy that is even more terrifying than the mob, because the mob at least has a like physical reality that people gather together in the plazas or in the streets. The bureaucracy doesn't gather anywhere.
No. It's just it's just like streetlights, it's something that's always there, that functions, that you can't interact with it. There's no interactivity between the people and the bureaucracy, because the people are the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is comprised of the people in this strange kind of like partnership, but the mob can have a shaman running around screaming in it. The bureaucracy can't have that. It's not going to be ever.
Hmm.
And see, this is the thing with the image of our prime minister. Everybody was shocked that he was elected, but not really. Just like a lot of people from around the world are shocked, but not really shocked that the elections went the way they went. But he's so that it, at least you guys
I still can't remember his name. Is he
like forgets things open? You've got openly demented person. Like dementia is in the White House, right? That's his credit. He's just like, yeah, Alzheimer's. Get interesting. Nothing. There's nothing there. He's a party man. It's like everything his party says. He's it's just like, yeah, the bureaucracy is now there to the point where even the leader of the country just behaves in a kind of bean counter way. So having the news or the prediction that we may be in conflict with our Asiatic neighbors to the north very soon, I for like 15 minutes, the people here are not ready for that. We don't have the evidence currently to argue openly in public about the behavior of a tennis player, let alone a serious conversation about national sovereignty. Like, has been squashed. It's like maybe this is why we're dooming. Maybe this is why everything feels. But it's like we've entered the bureaucracy. No aberration can exist in it. So the zombification process of everything, of life itself, is sort of without anyone necessarily voting for it to happen.
Right.
And then proposing that this by conflict, like by international conflict or something, or even just talking about an international conflict that's happening between Russia and the Ukraine seems doubly terrifying, because I think deep down everybody knows that nobody is ready to handle that level of conflict. They can't even handle the conflict. You told me to mask. You're acting like a complete bastard for 2 years. I don't want to see you ever again.
Right.
Minor interpersonal conflicts now have become so terrifying that people don't want to deal with it. So we don't talk about last year. We're only in the present now. Forget about that, because that's going to cause too many problems. And even the official institution that wanted to remove him is telling everybody to squash dissent. So it's like the democratic to suppress aberration, which is human, suppress all personal conflict has to be suppressed at all costs. It's a very artificial cohesiveness that's being imposed on everybody, which I find personally terrifying, because I really like conflict. But in a healthy way, and clearly this is Tate's secret to success. That secret sauce teach you how to engage in massive conflict and not care at all.
Well, Tate, I mean, in that sense, Tate is like Novak, right? They both play games, and I mean, Novak is exciting. He's had the game against wearing the mask or being vaccinated, but he also is, the theater of the sport that is conflictual.
Well, it's a sport. So again, we're combative, non-combative. It's just this very strange contrast, right? Tate was combative because he was a kickboxer. So at the very least, there is an admission, a combative element to life in that particular sporting arena.
Right.
You're in the ring.
No, I like
drawing
sports.
blood.
I mean, I think it's interesting though when sports become it's like you've taken the game part and made it the serious, and there's no serious left, and we're not sure what it is. So what would it be? Serious. I have showing another juxtaposition here. You have is this your prime minister character guy with his mom? Is that the same person?
Is he in the shirt that's in 80s print? Slightly
yes.
tribal.
Juxtaposed with another of Putin with his shirt off, but this one's a rather different setting.
Which one was Putin?
He's wet, and he's got there's an icon behind him of a mother and son.
Yeah, son. I had to do
I like this juxtaposition. I thought this was very interesting.
Well, for everyone that doesn't know, so the prime minister's name Albanese is it's an Italian name, but he didn't grow up Italian. So his mom ended up pregnant. The soap opera of Australia. You're getting the ghost. His mom got pregnant with him when she was on a cruise liner on holiday and had a fling with a guy who works on the boat.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, he's a love boat baby. So,
he's a love boat baby.
Yeah. He grew up council housing with an Italian surname, but never having contact with his Italian father. I think he met him once down and went to Italy to find him. So that paints a picture of the psychological content of our prime minister. So he has disconnected from patriarchy from birth, and not just disconnected from patriarchy, but completely disconnected from heritage.
Right.
Putin, on the other hand, doesn't have those issues. So I thinking about the difference in the two of them and the feeling that we're presented with in Australia here is that, okay, we have a man leading the country.
She's frozen again. While she figures out that she's frozen again, Standing Outside says thank you and I enjoy the streams. Thank you for your support. It's not the Ash Center at Harvard. I'm going to have to look it up. Isaiah and Annie say, it's sad we don't have any cultural advocates in the church. Well, I think what we're trying to do right now is figuring out what that would even look like. What kind of cultural advocate would we need to be able to feel like we had one? Isaiah and Annie Z, we were sold power and individuality while they stripped away our communal cultures. Yes. And I think what we've been seeing with, for example, the performance of power with they all dress like bankers, we all end up looking the same in the world. What are we actually fighting for in difference? Which is, I mean, one of the things that I think Putin is playing with in the performances that he does in terms of embracing the culture of our actual church. Paper Eating Bear, were the harsh lockdowns there a way of priming the people for submission? It would seem so, but we're trying to figure out. And you're back. I've been reading. We had another super chat from Standing Outside. So, okay. So we've got our watchers to get to the point where we recognize that we're trying to figure out where the culture is and what it would mean and what it would even mean to have a culture anymore. We say and this performative masculinity that we've been dancing around is complicated, since all them the people allegedly in with the most power in the world all dress the same and all look like bankers. So Casey, Albanese's dad is Gopher? No, wait. Okay. Oh, no. That's an internal conversation going on between Mel and Casey. Mel says, my aunt was a dancer on the Love Boat. On the actual show? That's interesting. Okay. Kilts, carry on with your thought.
What was I thinking about?
We were talking about Albanese and the
Albanese, yeah.
his lack of fatherhood, his lack of contact with his patriarchal ancestral culture, if any.
He, uh, him, like he doesn't speak like a wog,
Right.
you know, like I grew up with. He's got totally different vibe. And so proposes himself as a champion of the left, you know, like hard left. I mean, Australia doesn't have a right. Really, there's like 15 of us. You know, in terms of monarchists, and then the ones that everyone calls like the far right, which are just, you know, they're all fake. But you know, the leftists are like they're all equality and whatever, and women in power. So he's there, and he's Mr. Equality, but he's running the country with this kind of background, and seems to be really ill-fitting in the role, in some, because he's emphasizing that he's a non-threatening male presence yet this doesn't work on the world stage. You know, it would work for him as leading one of the states or territories here, because you can be bumbling, incompetent Rock Hudson type if you're leading a state. But if you're leading a country and you're up against people that are promoting a version of themselves to their people as like Putin, you know, the Putin model leader, which is, I'm going to bathe in freezing water.
This is the epiphany plunge that he takes every year. Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't it wasn't it was a really emphasizing, I'm following the tradition, I'm following the patriarchate of the Russian church, declaring his orthodoxy, his fidelity to tradition. He has the icon of behind him in that picture, which is not an accident. Everything about him generates a sense of continuity and security, and the structure of like of knowing clearly who he is ethnically and everything. He's opposite to Albanese, who is terrified of looking the least bit ethnic, although he will use it, of course, his advantage. It happens by a complete accident to have this connection to Italy. Mm-hmm. He milks it, right? So that's his, you know, I'm not white, I'm ethnic. Whatever. Because, well, you know, as I've told you, that's how it is here, right? So this is his kind of and he's second in command in terms of his politics. You know, leverage team is his foreign minister, Penny Wong.
Oh, she's in that previous picture. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is where the odd crossover happens. I was kind of meditating on what it means to actually live in a country where we don't have a kind of strong understanding even of what that looks like, because all the leaders are dressed like they're going for a hike, not running a country. Present to the public versus the internal side. You know, this is a big part of Chinese culture as well, is that, you know, it's all about face. You have to maintain it. We're in denial of that until COVID. Then it's all sort of kind of waking up to what we're actually operating like. Hey, we care about face more than we thought we did. Anyway, so he's got Penny Wong. Penny Wong has been famous for a long time in Australia as an out-of-the-closet lesbian. She has a wife or something, and she's always the kind of darling of the feminists, because it's like, oh, Penny Wong, she's got the perfect politics, and she's living with a woman, blah blah blah. Where I find this really funny is Penny Wong is of Chinese descent, a name, but now we've got a Chinese woman, or a woman of Chinese descent, to the point where she's apex liberal, the apex liberal lifestyle. She's hit the peak, right? So she's ended the liberal hierarchy. She couldn't do this in China and have the career that she's had here. It would not fly. So we've got a half Italian leading the country with a foreign minister with this kind of lifestyle, who's representing to Asian neighbors to the north, two of those being China and Russia, not the most LGBT friendly nations on earth. It's so funny. I just find this really humorous. And when people are talking about potential Chinese invasion, I was kind of laughing, because it's like the Chinese were invaded by Mongolians. They Mongolians them out, and then I'm thinking, hold on a second, we're the Mongolians in this situation, because like we have someone who's come from Chinese culture, which is very entrenched in respect for elders and ancestors and tradition and public face, and like if you're a Chinese woman and you're not married by 25, you're done. It's kind of west, moved into the far west, Australia, which is so west it's now east, but has westernized and ascended the hierarchy. But they've ascended the hierarchy of a liberal. So who's going to invade who? This is the thing that I find really confusing now.
Right.
This was kind of the white pill in my, because I don't know if it's a black and white. I'm not sure if our northern neighbors can survive exposure to us. And I have to be honest,
indeed. I mean,
I don't know if they're going to survive it. Chinese students come out. They're the biggest international China partner.
Right.
One of our biggest markets in the entire Australian economy is international students from China.
Yes.
Who come here and who are on the razor's edge of almost westernizing and not quite, and then almost westernizing and not quite. And the process, over the last a little while, with the way they dress, the way they behave, they are westernizing while they're here. Their particular lifestyles, which they can live here but cannot do out of the closet now. So there's so much going on down here that is not the strong nationalism that is being by these particular political leaders. I don't think it's that simple.
I'm sure you're absolutely right that there's not. I mean, this is what we said. We don't. I mean, the people that I know from Russia at my fencing club are obviously here, not in Russia, or in the Ukraine, and so their take on exactly, because they left and came to live in the United States, whether or not Putin is or isn't the hero that he's performing in these kinds of photo shoots, I grant is difficult for me to understand. I mean, so what you're sketching though is this possibility that even between what's his name, Alba Macy, and Putin, the sort of dilution of masculinity that we in the West have so, effectively cultivated could even affect Putin. That this makes me sad. I was saying the Russians I know are fencers. Come on, it's like they talk about sport, right? It's like this combative one-on-one sword play. I want them to have some kind of fire and masculinity. Otherwise, who will I bout with?
Yes. Well, I mean, I hope it never happens, but I mean, say if anybody wants to retain their culture up there, in North Asia, because I know we're technically Oceania, but it's a strange. We've got, I don't know, this continent's weird, but in South Asia, isn't it schizophrenic? It's so schizophrenic being an Australian. We're so confused. So down here, to come down and sort of, the more exposure that they have with us, the more like us they're getting.
Xi and Putin dress the same.
Yes,
I mean, it's so interesting. They cannot, as you pointed out, as nationalist as they are, we are claiming they are, that they don't adopt costume other than the British imperial banker costume is kind of interesting. Like they cannot, they are still so much bound up in that system. They can't abandon the costume.
Yep, they still stick to the facade. Because he didn't care. Right. He was out in full, madam dress. Stared at the same way the Q shaman was at Jan 6. Because that would be just as shocking to everybody. That's a real, genuine refusal of globalism. We're not even going to want to look like you people anymore. We're just going to do our own thing. But no one's really willing to do that.
So the best Putin could do is be shirtless. That's what he's famous for, right? All the shirtless photos. Yeah. He might as well be, Captain Kirk. So he got his shirt off again, and it's or Novak with no shirt on, right? That the strongest representation they can have is no culture, no clothes.
Well, what I find interesting is when those two particular men take their shirts off, they reveal that they're wearing the cross. The interesting
nice
that imagery. They take off the Western costume, and then they reveal their orthodoxy underneath it, which I find that very interesting.
And their baptismal clothes, as it were.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't. I'm not going to doom about an invasion that I think is actually happening in reverse. If I must be very honest.
Well, we have some pictures. You also included some pictures of protesters, and protesters getting shot with silly string or pepper spray or something.
Oh no, that's chemicals.
The top or the Hong Kong, is that Hong Kong or is that in Australia?
That was China. That was the COVID
China.
China. Yeah. Yep. Anti-mandate.
And the COVID protest in Australia, you got shot at.
Yeah, we got shot at and trampled and sprayed with chemicals, and all sorts of fun things were happening. But the media were very vicious protesters in Australia, and they were lionizing the Chinese anti-mandate protests. It was amazing. In the same like turbo bipolarity that public that they deported a diplomatic tennis star. We pivoted from passionate hatred standing up against the mandates down here
Mm.
to admiring the Chinese for doing exactly the same thing. So no wonder we're confused. I mean, like, there's no consistency in anything, and the narrative that we've been living in isn't even consistent. Who's good and who's bad changes so quickly that they're terrified to try and clarify it, because you can't have public contest. We're not allowed to have conflict. So we're maybe like searching for the courts in all of these ways, looking at all of these people that we've looked at, they're all in court in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're in conflict anymore.
Well, in this conflict, so the other picture you showed me was the Australians. Are they in front of the temple looking like building?
Oh yes, that's down in Melbourne. That's at the war. So that's the biggest war memorial in Australia. It's called the Shrine of Remembrance. It was erected for the soldiers that fought in the Great War for the Empire. So that's our imperial monument for the entire country. It's interesting. I've been inside. There's a replica of the Ark of the Covenant inside the shrine. And for some reason, no idea why.
We're gonna have to talk about that some other time.
Someone to go and take a photo of it, but
very interesting.
It is. So that's how the nation views its national covenant. The binding narrative, the binding myth of Australia was that shrine. It was the sacrifice of the men for we have this military mythology that exists to keep us all cohesive. Otherwise, without that shrine, we have absolutely nothing keeping us as a country, nothing whatsoever. And so when the protests were really bad down there, the people were getting shot at and sprayed, and then they said, right, we have to run somewhere that won't be desecrated. So we have to go somewhere we're not going to get shot or sprayed because the optics will be so bad that nobody will be a ceasefire and we can talk. So they all ran to the shrine. It didn't work. They ended up getting shot at the shrine, chased around. The following days, of course, it was very similar to the Q shaman situation.
Mm-hmm.
The memorial, and there's no place for protests. How dare they disrespect the memory of all the soldiers that the memorial is there for, etc. But interestingly, kind of exposing that's Australia's holy place. That's Australia's temple. It's the memory of like militarism. So,
and yet you're not allowed to fight.
No.
Now, the shrine element was similar with the Q shaman. That that the sacredest place is the apparently Congress, which whose major function is voting money for war. This, we're no closer to finding. I mean, it's like I'm sorry, guys. There's no white pill tonight because we can't figure it out.
No.
We're saying, and we had one last image of Tate contrasted with a man who has served. How does he lose his limbs?
Oh yeah, so the kilt guy. I forget his name, but someone posted that link in DCR last week. I kept it because I love the image. He was serving in Afghanistan. He had a wife and some kids with his first wife. He drove over IUD, the explosive devices that are in the ground. His legs were blown off, and so he went through a very, very long recovery. The woman in that picture that is standing next to him was his nurse in hospital. She nursed him while he was recovering from the surgeries. And they didn't see each other for some time. His first marriage split up. His first wife left him because of what was happening after the injuries. And then he reconnected with the nurse, and they got together, and they're getting married. It's a very happy story. But I like the image because, I mean, he has no legs. He walks around. And he lost his legs fighting for his country, and just so much that image. But the woman standing next to him looks really happy. Like, yeah, she looks really happy. Then the other image that's next to it, Andrew Tate with his legs that made him money. Like, this was kind of the contrast that I wanted to go in. But we're in a post-militarized culture that established itself through this mythology that we were virtuous because we were willing to sacrifice ourselves to empire.
Yep.
Not allowed. We're actively told not to engage in conflict, even in an interpersonal conflict or a social conflict when it comes to a social issue or our opinion of a tennis player who we previously supported. You know,
No, she's lost. Come back. We need to find Tate. Yes, so Paper Reading Bear says Tate is standing next to a mirror, like his image is his beloved. Exactly, right. That the juxtaposition of the man who lost his legs with his nurse, as compared with Tate, who is basically himself reflected, in this reflection mirror problem. We're hoping that Kilts gets herself back on. No, I can't believe that she was building this all up, right? We are in this culture that's supposed to be founded on fighting with this fake fight. Here she comes back. And you're back.
Hello?
Very good.
Yeah.
Carry on that thought. I tried not to keep talking.
I can barely hear you.
I can hear you. Finish what you were saying, because you'd rounded up with what Tate was doing and what the veteran is doing.
Oh yeah, well, we're living in anti-conflict culture that still expects us to celebrate that we're capable of conflict. And Tate is pitching himself as this hyper confrontational alpha who doesn't care, and he's out that he's made a career access to his masculinities that he can kind of divide and give to everybody else, like some kind of weird anti-Eucharist. And then the killed guy with no legs, his legs, fighting for his country, lost his wife and because he lost his legs fighting for his country. So he's demonstrated complete sacrifice, even his body and like a willingness to put his life on the and it's just the contrast between those two images. Like, we've got the same, which is to fight. We've got the same expectation. In both cases, but no one knows what to fight for anymore. No one knows who they're fighting for. No one knows what to fight for. No one knows who they're fighting. It's like ambiguity of everything. And because of this, there's this strange inability to define what we want in, because, you know, it's like, okay, we know they're supposed to be in conflict, but conflict over what? Tate doesn't even have a woman in his photo with him. No one loves him in this picture. You know, he's looking at himself in a mirror, and you can see behind there's another reflection of him, because it's this infinite bounce where he's just staring at him. So he's his own admirer. Whereas the Kilt guy, you know, has a woman who nursed him to help him, and you know, they're very happy. But we're in a position at the moment where all of these kinds of masculine presences have emerged. They're all fighting. We're not sure who or what or why. So yeah, I think probably that
where we are.
Yeah, and it got really bad when we were binging the Hays Code movies, because we were like, okay, I mean, you said it, you were expecting the romance and everything, and you wanted the pretty dresses, but I was like, okay, let's like get some vintage mask I can just like enjoy the memory of that for, and then it wasn't even there. So we're thinking, oh my god, not even the films are going to give this to us. Where do we but what do we actually want? It's just very strange.
Indeed.
It's true.
So we're kind of stuck right now.
Yeah.
In the doom spiral.
I know conflict is the heart of this all. I know it's about courts. I know it's about contest and conflict. That's the only thing that I've settled on in this discussion, and you know, getting the images together and everything, and why people have been so emotionally reactive to the men like Tate or Novak or the Pope or Pope Benedict or Cardinal Pell. It's like all of these people are in scandalous public conflict, but we're not really sure exactly why. Everyone's got a different frame. I don't know if even that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, and I think we just have to stop, because I mean, we're back to the shamans, and we know something powerful is happening, and Jordan Peterson is in retraining, and Andrew Tate's in jail, and our own local celebrities or influencers are, well, Milo will soon be celebrating, hopefully, his 2nd year anniversary of one particular absence of practice, which he was trying to show in Diabolical was a problem. This is where at least I think we have a clear description of the moment. And
I was going to say one dragon slayer is having some success. Mel will understand why.
Where shall we find a savior? To be continued. Yes. Yeah, I guess we just have to stop, right? Because this is, we are in this place where we can feel the fog, and that's about it. And I think the courts and the contest and the masculinity, we need to keep thinking about this. I mean, there are some fairly obvious solutions. Yes, it's Christ. However, I'm not sure we're going to get there by the route that the sort of catechetical, here's the answer, look at the Pope, is going to get us. That's not going to work. It's not the Pope.
No, it feels like we know the answer.
but not the path.
We know the destination. Yeah, exactly. We know the destination, but we're trudging to Mordor and we have no idea how we're gonna get there.
Yep. I'd say that's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the happy thing that happened tonight is we got our first super chat. So we are now officially true internet celebrities. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We will carry on to be continued next time in the Mosaic Arc. Good night.